Away we go. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome, one and all, to Coffee Talk. It is time once again for Coffee Talk Live, where we will be having some discussion about what is going on in the world today. We'll take a look at some clips from the news, share a little bit of dialogue with those of you who are able to join us for the live portion. And if you happen to be listening anywhere else and you wanted to join the live portion, you can find us Monday through a Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube on Coffee Talk and Prepper University. That's at Coffee Talk Live and at Prepper University, as well as fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta. You can find me on X at Coffee Talk Chat and Rumble Coffee Talk 2 as we get ready to get started here. Being joined today by Granny Smith. You can probably see her over my shoulder there in the background, sitting in the chair, grooming herself. And I have Miss Kitty as well. Miss Kitty is sitting in my lap, though, being clinging again today. There she is. Good girl. Miss Kitty having her moments, having her moment, as it were, as we get ready to jump off here. And I'll go ahead and say hello to some of the people that are joining us for the live portion. See how everybody's doing today. I see Anarchy has joined us. Jeff, Helter, Dragon, Monkey, Country Living, who reminds everybody thumbs up. Please do if you don't mind. Puck is here. Bob, Old Guy or Old One Guy. Tuck, popping in today as we get ready to get started. And once again, one of the drawbacks naturally to modern technology and the World Wide Web and all that is that things come back down the pipe so quickly, it's hard to even keep up. And we will be talking about everybody's favorite politician, Tim Walz, shortly. But there are a few things to mull over first. I see Michael has joined us. Says thumbs up, please, if you don't mind. I don't think it actually helps with anything, but I appreciate it. YouTube tells you, oh, it helps the algorithm. Yeah, sure it does. Nothing helps the algorithm. Nothing. Puck says, saw something about the EU telling people to stock up 72 hours worth of food. War is imminent. It could be a scare tactic, too. It's kind of like how, just before actually Biden was elected and New York issuing PSAs about nuclear fallout. Did the bombs fall? You never know. Raccoon has joined us. And Country wants to know, why do we have to talk about Tim? Because he won't go away. The man will not leave. He actually believes that he is in a position to run for election in 2028. I got to ask, is that what anybody wants? But first things first, this is top of the news, and that is the Supreme Court. And this is a KCAU Sioux City, Iowa story. So this is a local story from Iowa, but you can find the same thing everywhere because they all copycat each other. It says Supreme Court upholds Biden's ghost guns crackdown. Okay. Supreme Court upheld the Biden administration regulation of, quote, ghost guns in a 7-2 decision Wednesday, rejecting a challenge brought by gun rights groups and several manufacturers. The future of the crackdown remains hazy. However, as the new Trump administration directs a review of all Biden-era firearm regulations, it could look to rescind the restrictions. But for now, the Supreme Court kept intact efforts by the Biden-era Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives to combat ghost guns, which are sold as do-it-yourself kits and difficult to trace, in response to an exploding number seized in crimes. And that actual last line there is what makes all of that bullshit. Okay? Response to exploding number seized in crimes. What they're really looking to do is make them traceable by putting numbers or markers on them when they're printed. Okay? But if you seized it in a crime, you've already got everything you need. If someone manufactured a quote ghost gun to use in a crime, they are a criminal no matter where they got it from. Whether it's able to be traced or not is irrelevant. Just like with real firearms, someone who printed one up to collect or to use at the range or whatever that has no dishonorable intentions, it doesn't matter if it's traceable or not. Once again, laws are for the law abiding. And there's Puck with the pun of the day, as it were, the Mr. Peabody moment, suggesting that ghost guns are haunting. Kimberly has joined us. And Tuck says SCOTUS being treacherous for 200 plus years. And Puck said registration leads to confiscation. Ask the Aussies. Yeah. Or the people in the UK. Look at the hoops you have to jump through to get a firearm there now. Or anywhere else that any of that went on. Yeah. Registration leads to confiscation eventually. Eventually. Every country historically where we've seen that go on, they come and they round it up one sooner or later. They're trying that in Canada too. It's gotten really tough in Canada. And the Mounties have almost become like a strong arm operation for the Canadian government. So that's top of the news right now. Supreme Court is going to hold it up for the ATF because Trump doesn't like a lot of what Biden did with gun regulations on his watch, because most of what he did is not what the American people want. And he said he would start to walk some of that back, and he has been. He has been. As we move on, here's the other big story of the day. Don't worry, we'll get to Tampon Tim. I know you're all chomping at the bit. Not really. Probably just because I pick on him so bad. Excuse me. He really is kind of a, I don't know what's up with that guy. Weird, quirky guy. Some people call him Elmer Fudd. I don't even think that's fair. I don't think it's fair to Elmer Fudd, who does know how to load his shotgun. So here we are, and this is from CBS News. Trump aims to overhaul the U.S. elections in executive order with new requirements. So he took away some of the things that have been added in executive orders. President Trump Tuesday signed a sweeping executive action to overhaul U.S. elections that would require documentary proof of citizenship to register to vote in federal elections and mandate that all ballots be received by election day across the country. The order claims the U.S. has not adequately enforced federal election requirements, citing as examples prohibiting states from counting ballots received after election day or prohibiting non-citizens from registering to vote. Non-citizens shouldn't be allowed to vote in any election, whether it's president or county dog catcher, as far as I'm concerned. Do you see that anywhere else but in the Western world? The order says the U.S. has failed to enforce basic and necessary election protections and calls on states to work with federal agencies to share voter lists and prosecute election crimes. The president also threatened to put federal funding from states where election officials are not in compliance, or pull federal funding, I should say. David Becker, CEO of the Center for Election Innovation and Research, characterized the order as a federal takeover of the constitutional authority of local and state governments to run elections. He said it seeks to seize authority over election technology and process at the state and local level, all while bypassing congressional approval. Oh no, David Becker. I'm pretty sure the founding fathers, when they set up the elections, didn't expect foreigners to show up and vote or to have their names used for elections. Sven suggests Elmer Fudd was a man and Tim is not. Oh my. And Jane is here, Jane Spitfire. You see back there, oh, you can't see yet. Granny Smith is sitting in the chair behind me. The one who is the most appreciative of the fish that you sent. Muggy said, Waltz reminds me more of Principal McVicker, yeah, Beavis from Beavis and Butthead, or in Beavis's words, Principal McDicker, with how he made that face. Yeah, and I used that on the thumbnail. He looked so lost during that debate with Tim Waltz. Back to the article. If implemented, it could cost state taxpayers tens of billions, David Becker predicts. Though Becker, who is a CBS News election law contributor, also expects the executive order to face a difficult road in the courts. It is not going to cost state taxpayers tens of billions of dollars to put a program, because it's going to be on a computer, to put a program in place to make sure that people who are registered to vote are actual U.S. citizens. Because that would be in the driving record anyways. DMV is the one that processes all that shit. That's not going to cost, I'm in Georgia. It's not going to cost Georgia tens of billions in taxpayer dollars for them to click a few keys on the computer to make non-citizens with driver's licenses ineligible to vote in a federal election. That's that's ridiculous. I see Paul has joined us, as well as Lucky. Yeah, there you go, country. No ID, no vote. There it is. It's not that hard. It's not going to cost tens of billions of dollars. That's just something that this court. Oh, careful, Kitty. Miss Kitty fell asleep and fell out of my lap. It wouldn't be so bad, but she claws you when they claw you when they go down. And Dragon says non-citizens were not allowed to register or to vote anywhere in the U.S. before this executive order. And they want Waltz for president. Of the current possibilities, he's done a lot of great things for the people of Minnesota. I want that for all of us. He's done great things for Minnesota, huh? You're going to get the room really buzzing there. Marvel fan is here. Glad you could make it. Glad you could make it today. I dare say that Tim has done a lot of things for China. That was his first job working in China. He had his honeymoon in China. And then the other big one, and this is kind of going under the radar. This is kind of going on under the radar, is the external revenue service. The external revenue service. And this is going to be a Newsweek article. Have you heard this? Donald Trump to launch external revenue service. So what is that? Okay, that is actually walking things back. That is actually, Dragon says IDs are difficult and expensive for many people. Trump doesn't want poor people to vote. You're talking to the wrong person on that one. Okay, they're not difficult and they're not that expensive. It doesn't cost that much, and there are provisions provided by Department of Public Welfare for if you can't afford to vote. This is why Stacey Abrams lost all 28 of her lawsuits against the state of Georgia, because she was not able to produce even a single witness in any of those cases that said they couldn't get ID or were kept from voting. I mean, really, I don't know what to say. I think you're trolling. Anyways, external revenue service is walking back to before the IRS. So article reads, Trump administration is preparing to launch the External Revenue Service, a new tariff collecting agency, which it hopes will contribute to the eventual elimination of the Internal Revenue Service. During a cabinet meeting on Monday, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick said he was excited about the April 2nd, dubbed America's Liberation Day by President Trump. Lutnick added that the administration would be launching the External Revenue Service, though it was unclear whether he was suggesting that the agency would begin operating on that date. The administration has said that the establishment of the new agency will facilitate Trump's trade agenda and expedite tariff collection, arguing that the resulting revenues will lead to lower taxes on American citizens and bring forward the eventual abolition of the IRS, currently the government's main revenue generating agency. Basically, that's what we used to do before property tax and before income tax imposed by the federal government, which were both done during wartime and which were both supposed to be temporary. But when all the money started pouring in, the government just didn't keep their word and shut it off. The government went against their promises and kept it running. It was done temporarily during the Civil War, but then that was deactivated afterwards. The word was kept during that emergency. But when it happened during wartime in the 20th century, they never deactivated it. And they just kept increasing it and kept increasing it and kept increasing it. Prior to that, import-export is how the United States government earned income for whatever it needed to do, whatever programs it needed to put money into. So this is literally a step towards walking that back and getting the federal government's hands out of everybody's pockets. Kimberly says, I've always had to show my ID to vote. Where are they actually not checking ID? I don't know. I guess it depends on what state you're in. But here you show your ID. In Georgia, that is. Marvel Fan says no one can survive without a picture ID, not if getting free stuff. Even the Department of Public Welfare will give you one. They make them there. In the 90s, in Massachusetts, when I was still living in the Boston area, they had one that looked almost exactly like a driver's license, but it had like a design over the front of it that looked like a fishnet, but had your photograph, all your data, and a net on it. And it was issued by the Department of Public Welfare for free for people that were collecting benefits. And you would show that ID when you used your SNAP card then. Before it was called a SNAP card, you had to show that. So, I mean, it's provided. If you can't afford it, they can. There's always a way. Basically, there's always a way. Marvel Fan says he's dealing with the IRS now. I feel for you. I've been there. They're very mean and rude. I'm always scared to death talking to them. Be very careful. Very, very careful. There's no oversight currently with the IRS, and they don't have to tell you the truth or anything at all. They don't even have to tell you. Excuse me. They don't even have to tell you about your own case. And when I had to, and I still owe the IRS from way back, from like a decade ago. But at the time, remember, I've talked about it plenty of times with the IRS. They're absolutely ruthless. Absolutely ruthless, dishonest. I had an agent ask me for a bribe. I had agents threaten me. I had 2 agents show up at my door and ask if there was anything they could take, if I had coins or jewelry. And when I got around to, at the time, fortunately, I could afford a tax attorney and an accountant. And the attorney was like, you didn't give him anything, did you? That's how they steal. That you would have never gotten that. It would never have applied. they're absolutely ruthless, and almost everything that you're paying is fees, penalties, and interest. It's horrible. Monkey says in Ohio, ID is free. 17 or older, or 17 or under 17 and disabled, free ID. Fluke Man is here. Glad you could make it. Yeah, Marvel fan, anything. You need ID for absolutely everything at this point. Even homeless people have ID. That's crazy. Tuck says he's always been poor, never missed a vote. In 2020, sat in line in a wheelchair in the rain. In subsequent elections, I stood in lines with my walker. Most poor people have it far easier than I do. Yeah, that's just I think they were either trolling or they're just bought in. I'll just catch a couple of those up because I'm falling way behind on comments, because that just really threw people. But I think that's remarkable. I mean, if he's really looking to abolish the IRS and get them off Americans' backs, that'd be exceptional. That'd be exceptional, because all that stuff that you hear about them, I've talked about it many times. Oh, we're going after the 1%ers and we're going after the rich and make them pay their fair share and all that. No, they go after everybody else. It's the people in the middle that get the shit hammered out of them by the IRS. Those are the real targets. Those are the people that they harass and torment because they know they can't afford it. Who can afford it? Like I said, at that time, I could afford it. Right now, I can't afford a tax attorney. There's no way to cover me and to make sure that everything's being done legally. And even they have trouble. Oh, wow. It's absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. But that'd be remarkable if we could go back to that. And remember, this was at the highlight of, I mean, there was still a lot of poverty in the United States, but at that time when the federal government was out of everybody's business, you really could follow the concept of the American dream. I can work my way up and I can find a way. Now, the more you work, the more you get screwed. You're almost better off not working at all and collecting checks for free. Luke Man said, would you recommend having a voice recorder when talking to the IRS cops, etc.? For your own reference, because in certain states, it would be illegal. It depends on you. I would check to see what the law is in your state, because it may not be legal to use. But calling the IRS is useless, because if you call them, they're not going to tell you anything on the phone. Nothing. You really need a tax attorney to do that. And they'll keep them tied up for hours. When my accountant used to have to call them, they would just call and they just leave the phone off and wait to see if anyone picked up. Because it goes to the Muzak, and you just sit there for sometimes an hour or two waiting for someone to even connect to them to tell you that they can't answer any questions. It's incredible. But this would be remarkable if this goes all the way through. Get back to doing it the way they used to, with the government earning its money through trade. And I've heard the argument that, oh, well, the government's not supposed to earn money. They're supposed to be a service, like the post office, for example. Oh, the post office isn't supposed to make a profit. It's supposed to be a service. Well, it's not supposed to lose money. It is still a business, even if it's providing a service. And if it has overage, that is, if the books are in the black, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. It means they have a surplus and they can still provide their service. And they can use that surplus to repair buildings, upgrade their fleet, whatever they got to do. Whether you like it or not, yeah, the government should be run like a business. It needs to be able to earn in order to spend instead of just taking it from everyone. And D'Lo has joined us. Glad you could make it today. There you go, Jane. There's Granny Smith. You should be able to see her knocked out in the chair back there now. Fluke Man says, I imagine if you got caught using a voice recorder, they'd probably beat you up even if it's recommended by the government, but you'll probably get away with it if you used a smartphone. If it's police, they'll tell you they need to check your phone. I need to make sure it's not a weapon. That's usually the excuse. And then they'll erase whatever's in there or destroy your phone. With the IRS, I mean, you're messing with a federal authority at that point. I'd be careful. I would be real careful about that. Make sure you know what the rules are in your state. Make sure you know what the rules are in your state, because some states allow for you to record. Some states allow for you to record only if you say it's being recorded. And then certain agencies are exempt from it anyways. IRS could be one of them. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if you can absolutely do that. As we still talking about Trump here, we'll get to Tim Walz, don't worry. USA Today, Trump announces $5.8 billion Hyundai investment in first U.S. steel mill in Louisiana. Yeah, more proof that the tariffs are working because more industry coming back to the United States. Hyundai wants to start manufacturing here again, or expanding their manufacturing because they don't want to deal with import. So make it right here. Hey, that's the whole point. So here we go. Trump on Monday announced a $5.8 billion investment from Hyundai in a Louisiana steel manufacturing plant as part of a $21 billion planned U.S. investment that will unfold over the next 4 years. The South Korean company's first steel mill in the U.S. will create 1,300 jobs, according to the company's officials. The steel will be used in car and part plants in Alabama and Georgia, aiming to build 1 million cars per year. Quote, and this is Trump, "Get ready. This investment is a clear demonstration that tariffs very strongly work. They'll be making their cars here in America." Again, yeah, bringing manufacturing back to the United States. That's when we were the greatest, before we started exporting all of our manufacturing and then importing all of the manufactured goods. The announcement was part of a string of big dollar investments from companies such as Apple. We read that story. And computer chip makers that Trump attributed to the goods. Trump has already imposed 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum, and broader tariffs are slated to go into effect April 2nd, matching whatever a foreign country is charging for the same products. Basically, tariffs we're already paying in other countries will match. You're going to give us tariffs, we're going to do it to you. And as you've seen with Apple, with other computer manufacturers, with Hyundai and with Toyota too, I thought, right? They were like, no, we don't want to deal with that. We'll just move the plant to the United States. Well, shit, there you go. That was kind of what he was aiming for. That's kind of what he was aiming for. Yunsun Shung, if I pronounce that correctly, the executive chairman of Hyundai Motor Group, said the steel plant will serve as the foundation for a more self-reliant and secure automotive supply chain in the United States. Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry said he and his state lawmakers have been overhauling taxes, education, and public safety for a year to entice investment like Hyundai's. For decades now, Americans have seen jobs being offshored rather than onshore, according to Landry. This is a quote. "This is a message for all America that the president and governors out there care about American workers." Absolutely. Puck says India rolled back some tariffs as a result of Trump's reciprocal tariffs on Indian products. Flukeman says, but they'll make made in America less affordable. Will it be less affordable? That remains to be seen. It will be more affordable if we're paying less taxes. Because if something costs more, but you're paying less in tax, it'll balance out anyways. And Tuck says, funny how many naysayers say that tariffs will crush our economy, yet tariffs work just fine for all other nations. Yeah, because just about everybody else does it. The United States was giving everybody a pass. And he goes on to say, besides, our economy has been crushed a long time already. Time to try different moves. Correct. Correct. I'm all for the idea, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But something is desperately wrong. And that has been ignored for a long time. Oh, if we just keep doing it more like this, it'll get better somehow, and it has not worked. Sven says, if it costs more and is made here, I'll buy it. No income tax, I'll buy it and be happier. Yeah. I mean, if you're paying like 10 cents on the dollar for sales tax, and that gets reduced to 5 cents on the dollar, just as a blanket example to kind of make the point, it gets reduced to 5 cents on the dollar, but the item costs 5% more. It's the same difference. You're still paying the exact same price. Plus, it's being made here now, anyways. And Brian has joined us. Brian, you're late. And Countries Living says, president with a backbone. Imagine that. It's been a while. It's been a while. I honestly don't think we've had one since Reagan. Democrat or Republican, not since Reagan have I seen anybody willing to get out there and just hammer it out. But I like the direction it's going in so far. So far, everybody's crying, oh, tariffs, oh my God. Bring your manufacturing back and you won't have to worry about it. And again, if you're paying less in taxes, ultimately, which is what he's also shooting for, is to get the federal government out of your pockets. And by default, the state governments would have less to take as well. At the very least, it'll balance out. I'd rather have them out of my life and still pay the same amount because prices went up, even though there's less taxes. Because it'll come out to the same amount. It'll come out to the same amount. Now, here we go. Here's Timmy. Timmy! Hey, Timmy. I know you all been waiting. I know you all been waiting for dear old Timmy. Tuck says, made in America is already quite unaffordable. I think the tariffs will eventually lower the prices on many things, especially building materials, textiles, and steel. Anything. Well, we only used to use U.S. steel. But because of all the problems with the steel workers' unions strikes that took place in the 50s and 60s, manufacturers shut all those plants down and just started importing it from China. And Kimberly says they charge U.S. tariffs, but we shouldn't charge them. That's ridiculous. Don't charge us and we won't charge you. Yeah, they were already charging us and we just weren't charging them for some reason. And Trump was like, no, we're not going to do that. We'll at least match what you're doing to us so it'll balance out. And they're all crying, oh my God. Nature Nerd says, would a national sales tax be better than income tax? I suppose, because you can control what you purchase. You can control what you purchase. You don't have to. I mean, most of what people buy is luxury goods. Stuff they don't even need anyways. Garbage. You don't need to run around and buy half of what people buy. How many pairs of sneakers do people need? I mean, you know what? How many wigs? How many different shades of nail polish do you have to purchase? A lot of it is just useless. It's all vanity stuff. Vanity, vanity. Fox News article. And here's your tampon Tim. Wisconsinites. That sounds ridiculous. Wisconsinites. Some of the some of the names, like I'm from Boston and they would call me a Bostonian. Okay, that kind of works. Wisconsinites? I don't know. Anyway, Wisconsinites kicked out and denied entry to this Democrats' fake town hall. And we are talking about Tim Walz, who had Republicans removed from the town hall before the meeting even started. He wouldn't let them in. Yeah, that happened. Sven says when Canada goes bankrupt, we need to buy it. Oh, no. Oh, no. So here we go. And this is just coming down the pipe, too. This came out yesterday evening. A Wisconsin woman was removed from a town hall hosted by Democratic Minnesota Governor Tim Walz in Eau Claire last week after she filmed organizers blocking Trump supporters from entering. Wisconsin voter Katrina Patterson told Fox News Digital she wanted Walz to address potential cuts to Social Security and Medicare, but she was told to leave. Met by law enforcement and locked outside before the town hall even began. Patterson, who said she knew it was wrong, filmed event organizers denying men wearing Make America Great Again hats from entering Walz's town hall while she was registered for the event. Patterson only took her seat for a few minutes before she was also told to leave. Quote, Tim Walz and the Democrats are claiming that my congressman won't listen to his constituents, but yet we've got proof of them blocking Republicans from coming into the town hall. It's really hypocritical. It makes it abundantly obvious that their town halls aren't real. For lack of a better word, they're fake town halls because they only want to hear from Democrats. The former vice presidential candidate was one of the first Democrats to announce town halls in Republican-held congressional districts after the National Republican Congressional Committee, the political campaign committee tasked with electing more Republicans to the U.S. House of Representatives, advised against town halls after ongoing disruptions by Democratic protesters discontent with Trump's second term. So Republican lawmakers had to suspend town hall meetings because of violent outbursts from Democrat demonstrators or protesters being unruly. And Tim now has gone to Republican districts and set up town halls, but then is refusing to let Republicans in. Yeah, this is the guy we want to vote for president. Oh my God. Oh my God. Marvel says, I love Quincy Market, would go there and eat something different every time. Where did Quincy Market come from? I'm behind on the comments anyways. Kimberly said some states do not have a state tax, but the sales tax is higher. Country said Walz is probably scared. Country says it's mostly peaceful protesters. Correct. Yeah, that's what they tell them, like Antifa and BLM. Tuck said state sales tax, take the control away from the government. Federal government should not be collecting sales tax on anything it didn't sell directly. And his state has no state income tax, which has been for many decades a major reason retirees have moved here. Okay. When I was in Massachusetts, it was 5 cents on the dollar and no tax on clothing or food purchases. I don't know if that's changed since I left. Again, here it says, clearly, this is a quote, Clearly, this political theater was designed to only engage Democrats with no real interest in listening to voters who rejected their out-of-touch agenda. Yet another embarrassing charade on Walz's walk of shame. And that's NRCC spokesman Zach Bannon. When Walz announced his red state tour, he framed the town halls as an opportunity for constituents in Republican districts to make their voices heard. And this is a quote from Tim. "I'm hitting the road, traveling to red states across the country to lend a megaphone to the people. Your congressman may not want to listen, but they're going to hear from us anyway," Walz said in his post. So he's showing up in Republican districts for his open town hall meetings, so he claims. Town hall meetings. And then not letting the people in that district come in. So he's only going to hear from Democrats. That's really shady, Tim. Really shady. And what was that? Sven thinks it's 13 cents in Massachusetts now. I'm not sure. Like I said, when I was there in the 90s, it was 5 cents on the dollar. And food and clothing was not taxable at the time. I don't know what it is now. I don't know. And Sven says, my bad, 6.25%. Okay. Flukeman says, was it illegal what Tim had done? Isn't that the same thing as going to a private property and kicking out the occupants and refusing to let them in? I don't, I think that they probably could open up a lawsuit based on their First Amendment rights because they've been denied the right to be heard in a town hall meeting. If anybody can afford to do that and wants to deal with it, you know, that might be illegal. There's nothing there that demonstrates these people were being agitators. Nothing that demonstrates they were being agitators, only that they were Republican. And that woman actually had a seat. The woman who was filming had a seat and she was still thrown out. Okay. As we move around here, we got Erica Badu. He's also trying to walk back his Tesla comments now. Because again, he made the comment that he thinks it's funny. He likes to watch the Tesla stock and he checks it on his phone to see if it's going down because he thinks it's funny. And he wants to laugh at people. He wants to laugh at Tesla, rather, because he doesn't like Elon Musk, neglecting to realize, or perhaps he doesn't care, that his own state's pension fund has 1.6 million stocks, or owns 1.6 million stocks in Tesla, and that their state employee retirement plan depends on Tesla, quite frankly. Depends on Tesla. And so now that he's been called on that and he's walking it back saying that, oh, well, he was just kidding, you know, whatever. And Lucky said you should be able to sue for discrimination. If it was the other way around, they'd burn down the building. That's possible. That's possible. And while we're on the subject of Tesla, something about Erykah Badu. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Who is that? She's a celebrity of some kind. Is she a singer or an actor? Singer or an actor? Jessica or Erykah Badu. And this is an independent article, and this is virtue signaling at its finest, unless she's being sarcastic. Unless she's being sarcastic. Okay. Singer, says Lucky. Thank you. I wasn't sure. Erykah Badu says she vandalized her own Tesla to stay on trend. And I'm like, did you really vandalize your Tesla to virtue signal, or are you being sarcastic? It's unclear. Erykah Badu has said that she vandalized her own Tesla car, adding her name to a growing wave of protests against the company's owner. A backlash against Musk has spread across the United States since the billionaire aligned himself with Trump. Arsonists and vandals have targeted Tesla facilities and vehicles across the U.S., with protests also emerging in the UK and France. Well, France is always good for a riot. Trump has vowed to treat those who vandal Teslas in mounting attacks to protest Musk's job cuts and the dismantling of the federal government through the Department of Government Efficiency as domestic terrorists. And the domestic terrorism charge is depending upon how it's vandalized. Because there are instances where people have used accelerants or Molotov cocktails, things like that. Badu, whose 1997 album Baduism earned her the title of the Queen of Neo Soul. I've never heard any of that before. Has now added her voice to the discontent surrounding Musk and Trump. Quote, just vandalized my own Tesla, trying to stay on trend. It is unknown if she actually vandalized her own Tesla or even owns one. I don't know why she's saying that. I'd be curious to find out whether or not this is supposed to be, whether or not she's supposed to be, if she's serious, because, you know, celebrities are crazy and they'll do anything for attention, or if that is just sarcasm, which it could be. Who could be? Sven says Tesla has the smallest carbon footprint and best EMF shielding in the entire industry. The climate isn't the issue. And Lucky said I pronounced that correct. Okay. And then look how people are responding. Violence and just nastiness. We read those articles yesterday. Or no, the day before, excuse me. People wiping feces on the car or setting them on fire. And just about every person who's vandalized one has gotten caught. They're pretty stupid, quite frankly, because there is a wraparound video surveillance on those vehicles. So they got video of everyone, and they can clearly see them and eventually find them. And they've caught many of them already. And some of those charges are pretty serious, especially when you're talking about the use of firebombs, accelerants, explosives. That's really serious. For what? You can protest without destroying property. And you're not hurting Musk by doing that. Those cars are already sold. They've already been sold. Everybody loved Musk until he helped Trump. But now she's throwing her 2 cents in, and it could just be for attention. Again, it remains to be seen whether or not she actually even owns a Tesla. I have no idea. I have no idea. And again, I wasn't even sure who she was. I assumed she was a singer. I thought she might have been an actor. I wasn't sure. You know, I don't listen to modern music anyways, even though apparently She goes back to 1997, but I still don't recognize her. I still don't recognize her. Country said somebody nobody knows about, just trying to get publicity. I'm sure somebody knows who she is. A couple of people in the chat knew who she was. USA Today article: Teachers Union sues Trump over $400 million Columbia University research cuts. Teachers unions again, and I don't know. Get me started on teachers unions. Teachers unions is how we ended up with the Department of Education in the first place, because it was a side deal between Jimmy Carter and teachers unions to even create the Department of Education. And the way that and I know this isn't specifically about the Department of Education, but the Department of Education would use federal tax dollars to essentially bribe school districts to adopt programs or certain textbooks or whatever with federal money. Oh, well, you don't want to use this program because it sucks, but wink, wink, nudge, nudge. If we throw an extra 5 or 10 million your way, will you do it? And unfortunately, most school districts will do it for the money, because they are operated primarily by teachers unions, who they don't care about teachers or the kids. They care about how much money those unions can make. So here we are. Unions representing Columbia University professors, faculty, and staff have sued the Trump administration for cutting the $400 million in university funding, arguing the White House has violated the First Amendment while halting critical public health research. How is federal funding a First Amendment issue? First of all, that right there is how come this is not going to make it through court. Secondly, Columbia University, why do they need $400 million in federal funding in order to operate? If they spent the money that they have focused specifically on their students instead of everything else they're doing that they shouldn't be, they wouldn't need any federal funding. Probably wouldn't need any donations either. Kimberly says everybody loved Trump until he ran for president. True. Everybody except for who? Who remembers? The only person that didn't like Trump all the way back in the day and never changed? Rosie O'Donnell. Everybody else used to kiss his ass. It says President Trump and other administration officials targeted Columbia and New York City because students there last spring and summer occupied buildings and common areas to protest Israel's retaliatory attacks on Gaza. And those protests quickly spread nationally. They were spread and encouraged by outside agitators who poured money into activist groups to encourage them. George Soros, among some of those people with the deep pockets, funded agitators to stir things up at these colleges. And it was allowed to go way too far. And they had people on campus in the protests who didn't even attend those universities, which is what eventually got them all shut down. And now they want to sue teachers' unions, naturally, want to sue the Trump administration, claiming that reducing or cutting the funding violates the First Amendment somehow. Country Living says Rosie miss Ireland. Yeah, she moved to Ireland, and Ireland wants us to take her back. They want us to take her back. Sven says the union opposes school choice, trapping largely black kids in absolutely what? The unions are racist. Yes. Yeah, okay. I see what you're saying. But I see what you're saying, Sven. They don't want school choice because they want full access to that to the federal and state money that goes to those students. Again, You get paid by how many kids are in the school, how many kids are attached to the school, which is why they often want homeschool kids involved in public school programs. The kid never goes to the school, but if they offer any kind of services, they can claim that student within that district and get federal money for it, as well as state money, which isn't fair. The kid isn't attending. It's a scam. If you're homeschooling, never accept anything from the public school district. Don't do it. They're opposed to school choice because they don't want to lose that extra money because the unions get a piece of it. And they say, oh, well, you're robbing the school and you're robbing the other students. Well, no. If my kid's not in your school, you have the same resources. Nothing has changed. You're not getting the $26,000 you would have had for Jimmy being there to spend on Jimmy, but he's not there, so you don't need that extra $26,000 for the year, or however much is charged in that state. Tuck says the freaks over at Mad and Crack magazine hated Trump going way back, but they literally hated everyone except themselves. True. They picked on everybody. Nature Nerd says when Republicans didn't like electric vehicles, they just bought gas vehicles and didn't buy them. The left is torching them now. And you know what? Funny enough, too. Imagine what an environmental hazard a burning car is, especially an electric one. They can't even put those fires out. They can barely contain them. They're extremely dangerous. They are extremely dangerous. And they are long burning and very toxic. But yeah, I'm environmental. Let me set a battery-powered car on fire. Great idea. That's what Puck says. Liberalism is a mental disorder, indeed. Absolutely, indeed. That's how it is. That's how it is. I'm going to remind everybody that I will not be on Friday. I will not be on Friday. I'll be on tomorrow. But no Friday for you. Denied. No Friday for you. I'm going to have to be the soup Nazi on Friday. That's okay. But yeah, the teachers' unions, they don't care about the teachers and they don't care about the kids. They care about making money for the union and making money for the executives of the union. The people in the hierarchy in any union are very wealthy individuals. Very wealthy individuals. Several of them are millionaires. You remember the guy who was we talked about him a lot during the dock workers strike. The guy who was in charge of the dock unions on the East Coast. Huge mansion, yachts, fancy cars. He was like the Beverly Hillbillies without the jalopy. And Tuck says the geniuses in my school district bust the kids from the neighborhood that had a literal crack house epidemic to ours, which had enough issues. Those crack houses were torn down in the 80s. Hey, I was subjected to forced busing. Remember, I went to school in the 70s and the 80s. I was in school when they started that mess. And they would pick me up and run me all over creation. The way that it was so stupid the way they did it. I know I'm going down a rabbit hole here a little bit. I would be picked up in a Boston public school station wagon because they were so spread out, the kids, they couldn't do a regular bus pickup. And that you remember station wagons. I'm sure some of you, right? It was a yellow or a green station wagon with Boston Public Schools printed across the side, and it had yellow flashing lights on the roof. And they drive around all over creation. They come right in front of your door. They'd pick me up, and there'd already be 2 or 3 kids in there, and they'd run around and pick up like 5 or so more. We'd end up with like 7 or 8 kids in the station wagon. And then they'd eventually get to school, which they were busing me to Roxbury, which, by the way, Jackson Man Elementary School was literally a couple of blocks away from me. I couldn't go to Jackson Man because I had to be diversified by sending me to Roxbury. I'd be on that bus for damn near 2 hours in the morning, or not bus, station wagon, for damn near 2 hours in the morning for diversity. Absolute freaking waste of taxpayer dollars, forced busing to integrate kids into different neighborhoods. For what? So I could be called honky and cracker all day and get the crap kicked out of me by 30, 40 kids at a time in the schoolyard. Anyways, here's your debt clock as we wind up, and there is your Doge projection tracker, which is currently at $245 billion. $245 billion, folks. As we go ahead and get ready to wrap up, again, you are listening to and or watching Coffee Talk, and you can find the live portion Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube on Coffee Talk and Prepper University. You can find me on fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta. You can find me on X at Coffee Talk Chat. You can find me on Rumble, Coffee Talk 2 with the number 2. All People says was Roxbury the Haitian school. I don't remember the name of the school actually, but no, Roxbury was in Haitian. It was in that period, Roxbury, not West Roxbury. There's two in the Boston area. West Roxbury is actually a very upscale neighborhood. Roxbury was a predominantly black area with mostly housing. There was a lot of housing complexes and low-income housing projects, basically. That's what was there. So they were taking me out of a predominantly white, if you will, project and moving me to a black one to go to school. It didn't work out very well. All of Boston was in an uproar. I'm sure the whole country was in an uproar over all of that. Nobody wanted to do that. South Boston was really bad too. Southie, the song Southie is my hometown, all of that. Southie was mostly all white housing projects. They didn't want to have their kids bused to a project where those kids might have conflict. And there was conflict. Again, like I wasn't joking when I said, being chased around the playground by armies of black kids and getting the crap kicked out of me. And every person who talked to me, my name was either Cracker or Honky. That's no joke. That's what it was like. I'm just glad they don't do that shit anymore. The schools are already bad enough. But anyway, thanks for joining us here today, everybody. As always, hope you got something out of the conversation, and we will catch you again tomorrow. Oh, and all people, real quick, Roxbury and West Roxbury aren't near each other. They just, for some reason, they're both called Roxbury, and they called one of them West to differentiate between the two towns.